Anyone else like to address the speech in this room? Member from Calgary-Shaw.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I am honoured and with great humility that I respond to the speech from the throne. To be honest, the first time I was ever in this chamber, I sat up there, and the member for Edmonton Highlands Norwood sat over there. So times have kind of changed a little bit. But, you know, like the member for Calgary Southeast, I too grew up in Marlborough Park, which is a community rich in culture and hardworking individuals. And I want to open by thanking the member for Calgary East for the great description of her constituency. It is a neighbourhood where we take care of one another, and I am proud to have a person so bright and hardworking representing my mother and father's riding. 7 years ago, my wife and I decided to buy a house. We almost ended up settling in the north end of Calgary. However, we fell in love with a house in the south community of Millrise in Calgary-Shaw. And I'm glad we did, because Calgary-Shaw is a vibrant, strong community with a huge sense of pride who is willing to stand up for what they believe in. I saw this during the election. Students at Centennial High School took an activist role by leading a Save Our Schools campaign. They fought for better funding and reduced classroom sizes. They protested in the right fashion. They asked critical questions without taking a partisan approach. They held us elected officials accountable and will continue to do so. They even protested at City Hall during a Flames playoff game. Now, I have to say that's commitment. My community encompasses more than a dozen public and private schools, including 2 high schools, many of which are over capacity, and some which have been overlooked by modular classrooms during the 2014 by-elections in Calgary. At the doorstep, I heard from people in my riding who were tired of MLAs who wouldn't listen to Albertans, whether it was floor crossing or Albertans wanting to get a better tax system that's more fair for all Albertans. However, my constituents were heard loud and clear on May 5th, and that is why I stand here with you all today. My constituency encompasses the communities of Millrise, Shaughnessy, Shawnee Slope, Somerset, Sundance, and the historical community of Midnapore, which was one of Calgary's earliest settlements and was incorporated to the City of Calgary in the 1970s. In the north boundary of my constituency is Fish Creek Provincial Park, which encompasses a huge amount of reclaimed green space. It is preserved by the hardworking members of the Friends of Fish Creek, who have worked hard to educate people about wilderness in my beautiful community. This park is a prized gem of the people of Calgary-Shaw. The people appreciate it so much that if a shovel even touches the ground, I get a dozen phone calls to my constituency office. I see an active community in my constituency, whether it's the people in Somerset who upkeep the Town Square Water Park, to the people who meet and maintain the Shaughnessy Barn, to the volunteers who manage the Zamboni at the community rink in Millrise, to those in Midnapore and Sundance who have worked hard for a community centre upgrade, which the community centre services people of all of South Calgary. The people of Calgary-Shaw work hard to take care of one another. I saw this during a devastating condo fire in Millrise in 2010. Where many volunteers went to the Southview Alliance Church to give their support and donate whatever they could to help out their fellow neighbours. During the 2013 flood, the Fish Creek Recreational Centre became a relief centre for those impacted by the flood, in an area where many residents in my constituency sent their support. I see a sense of community when I visit St. Mary's University, one of the fastest growing post-secondary institutions in Alberta. Its Humanities 101 program brings in vulnerable and homeless Calgarians, provides them with free tuition, meals, and even childcare while they attend studies. This program is supported in part by fundraising from students and faculty at the university. Under the previous government, they were going to lose 16% of their funding next term. However, our government has reversed those cuts. And I am proud to work with the faculty under the leadership of Jerry Turcott. They are building bridges with the First Nations community to allow them to create an inclusive space in this university, and they have been doing this for years, Mr. Speaker. Myself, I was born and raised in Calgary. I'm a second-generation Calgarian, which is a rare breed, if you will. My grandfather was born in Slovakia and immigrated to Alberta when he was a child to work on a farm. When my father was a child, my grandfather refused to teach him Slovakian because he was discriminated as a child. Well, now, Mr. Speaker, I stand here with a caucus of almost 50-50 ratio of men and women, people from many ethnicities, languages, and sexual orientations, and I'm happy to see us having passed the first reading of Bill 7 as well, too. I can say to my grandfather, that we are even closer than we have been to living in an inclusive society in Alberta, although there is still some work to be done. When attending school, I had troubles learning to read and write. The turning point in my challenges, however, was the caring teacher named Mrs. Coxon. She gave me support, taught me confidence, and never gave up on me even when I felt like giving up on myself. I lost touch with her after I finished school, until I was sworn in when she emailed to congratulate me. I often worry about my children and if they will face the same challenges that I did. I often wonder if they will receive the same level of support. It relieves me to no end, Mr. Speaker, to know that our government is committed to protecting and improving public education. I stand here a proud former restaurant manager. The people who I worked with dealt with many issues, including inadequate access to health care, issues with social services, high tuition increases with cuts to programs, and I am happy to see our government is working hard to improve these issues. The people I work with were full of passion and generosity. In the 2013 flood, they mobilized only days after and helped raise close to $10,000 with help from the Calgary Stampeders. And I have to say, I'm rooting for the Stampeders this go around as well. I have to thank my associates for believing in me, even when it seemed like very few people did. They had quite a bit of confidence in me, and I'm grateful for that. As a business operator, Mr. Speaker, I want to make it perfectly clear. If I thought the NDP was bad for business, I would not have run as an MLA for the NDP. In the restaurant industry, I have seen increases of costs of wines due to drought, increased food costs by 50%, heavy taxation increases in liquor, increased service charges due to high prices of oil and gas, and heavy increases due to rent due to supply and demand. Anytime things like this happen, we adapt our business to make it work, and the same will apply for the increase in minimum wage. As I stand here, Mr. Speaker, I want to thank the members who represented my riding before myself. From Jin Dinny, who I want to recognize is receiving the Order of Canada this year, to John Havelock, to Jeff Wilson, to Cindy Adey. They have all made sacrifices to represent their constituents, and I am grateful for their service. After spending over an hour chatting with Cindy Adey after my election, she spoke to me about not losing sight of my family and my constituents in my riding. She wanted to remind me the importance of balancing one's family life and their work within the constituency. As I stand here, I want to represent those family members who held political office before myself. My mother, Debbie Dean, who sat on the University of Calgary Senate with actually the Speaker of the House, not yourself, but the other Speaker. My cousin, Tracy Douglas Blowers, who sat on City Council for the City of Lloydminster. My mother-in-law, Carol Bazinet, who served as a public trustee in Calgary for over 10 years. Thank you. To my great-great-uncle, Thomas John Bentley, who served as a Member of Parliament and served in the Saskatchewan Legislative Assembly as Minister of Public Health under Tommy Douglas's CCF government in 1950. In his maiden speech while addressing the opposition, my great-great-uncle said, "I would like to congratulate all those who have spoken before me. However, that would not be presumptuous on my part. They all did well. They expressed their opinions they felt. Some expressed opinions that I am going to heartily disagree with before I sit down, but nevertheless, they were opinions they had the right to express. They were properly done so in the House. The rest of us had a right to hear them, to know what the various opinions are." I think this truly reflects the open dialogue that we are hoping to achieve with our opposition over the next 4 years, and I look forward to working alongside our counterparts on the other side of the floor. Though we may disagree on something, I hope to maintain the respect with my friends across the floor. May they continue to challenge us properly to ensure that this province is the best one possible. I think my great-great-uncle would be proud of what our government has committed to in regards to restoring public health care here. He dreamed for all Canadians to have access to public health care, and we as a government must ensure we do what we can to repair and maintain it here in Alberta. During the election, I received a heartfelt endorsement from my Aunt Ray and Uncle Paul Douglas. In a letter they sent me during the campaign, they both said, "Graham, you will do very well because you have a heart that will guide you through all of your challenges." Sadly, my uncle passed away 2 weeks before the election after a long battle with cancer. I was told he was watching this campaign with a lot of interest and excitement. My uncle shared a lot with me and my sister. I think the greatest thing that he shared with me was to give back to your family and your community. Funny enough, the first thing my aunt did when seeing me at my uncle's funeral was to introduce me to the member of Vermilion Lloydminster. It was important for her that I learn to respect your fellow counterparts regardless of our differences. So, closing, Mr. Speaker, I want to thank my mother and father, Don and Debbie, and my sister Melanie for always supporting my dreams. Words cannot convey how you have positively contributed to my life. To my wife, Monique, and children Alex, Ben, and Lily, I want to apologize for the burden that this job is going to have on you. I want you to understand that me and my colleagues are here to work to make Alberta a better place, and I want to thank you from the bottom of your heart for the sacrifices you're making to Alberta. Thank you very much.
Would anybody like to respond under 29(2)(a)?
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. The honourable member from Calgary-Shaw talked of his loves for the Stampeders, which I also, as another Calgary MLA, am definitely rooting for them as well. Now, the honourable member spoke of a dedicated teacher helping him when he needed some assistance with his learning while in school, and I know the honourable member also has kids in the current school system, so I was wondering if he would be able to elaborate on the impact that teacher made for him and sort of contrast it with his current children's experience and how you as an MLA would be supporting that here in the House.
Well, thank you, Honourable Member for Calgary-Curry. At the time when I went into school, it was in the early 90s, we had a lot of support that was going into the public education system. So my teacher had the time, because the classroom sizes were smaller, to really support me in these efforts. The challenges that my children have had going to school in South Calgary is just a capacity issue. It's great to see that our government is committed to working towards building new schools in the south end of Calgary. I will not see personally any in my riding, but that's a good thing, because all the students coming in are from out of my riding, and they need a place to go to school. So a lot of them are going in there, and it will really help alleviate a lot of the pressures that we see. And I think that as we move forward with open transparency when it comes to building and moving forward with things like modular classrooms, that the fair choices will be made for the people of Calgary and for the people of Alberta as well.